moving one step closer to the promised land. Aikenhead survives again. Say hello to the November 9. This is the greatest tournament in the world!
There can be only one person who is better at what they do than anyone who has ever walked the earth. One legend, one icon, one who is the greatest of all time. This is poker's pantheon. Tonight, the debate begins. Is he the one?
Phil Ivey, he's great at cash games, online, and tournaments. No one else can say that. No one.
Imagine the world's best poker player winning the world's biggest tournament. That's just awesome.
I never thought I would see a pro win this tournament again. So if Phil does it, he may be the best player of all time.
At age 32, Phil Ivey has already won 7 bracelets. Now he has the chance to take down the big one, to capture $8.5 million, and to stake his claim that he is the best poker player who ever lived.
This is the biggest moment of my career. You don't get too many opportunities like this. And if I play my game, I like my chances.
Between Ivey and immortality stand 8 men, each hoping to etch his name into poker history, including a poker veteran making a return trip to the final table.
I've been here before. Now I want to win it all.
A Wall Street executive looking for an unlikely payday.
There's a reason I've made it this far, and there's no reason I can't go all the way.
A young gun who could rewrite the record books.
We're just a kid with a dream, and it may actually come true.
And a mild-mannered logger who just happens to be the overwhelming chip leader.
Ivey was incredible. Heck, all these guys can play, but I didn't come here to lose.
The World Series of Poker main event final table. 9 men, the November 9. And if Ivey can beat them all, he may become the one. In the end, there will indeed be only one. But at the start of the day, thousands of fans lined up outside the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. Everyone came to cheer for their favorite player, and when the gates were finally opened, the anticipation grew.
It's like a madhouse.
Then it was time for the players to arrive and the festivities to get underway.
He's ready.
Welcome, everyone, to the World Series of Poker presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. I'm Lon McCarran, along with Norman Chad, and this is the most anticipated final table in poker history.
This is a ridiculous scene in here, Lon. Quite a long way from Fremont Street in the old days at the Horseshoe.
And poker's elite are out en masse as well to watch this historic final table as the November 9 are getting ready to battle it out for poker's biggest prize. This is the 40th annual World Series of Poker, and in that time, the main event has become a place of possibilities, the home to fairy tale endings and life-changing new beginnings. 6,494 players chased that elusive dream this year, and Norman, our final table is now set. 9 players who each embody this grand event in their own unique way.
Lon, the main event is about the improbable. The main event is about the unimaginable. The main event is about Darvin Moon. We love to say anyone can win the big one. Well, in World Series history, is there anyone more unlikely than Darvin Moon? Most of me, of course, tonight will be rooting for my main man, Phil Ivey. But part of me will be rooting for the logger from Western Maryland to walk in from the woods and walk away with $8.5 million.
There is the World Championship bracelet. Now let's get to know the November 9. James Aikenhead hopes to become the first British-born player to win the main event, but the short stack owns only 4% of the chips in play. With $9.5 million is the other European at this table, France's Antoine Saout, whose first main event is translated into his first final table.
Then there is my man, Phil Ivey. Even though he is short on chips, he is still the most feared player at this or any table. The oldest member of the November 9, 52-year-old Kevin Schaffel, has almost $12.4 million.
Next is 21-year-old Joe Cata, who could break Peter Eastgate's record as the youngest main event champ. Jeff Shulman is making his second main event final table appearance. He's currently in fourth place with over $19.5 million.
Former Bear Stearns executive Steve Begleiter is about $8 million over chip average, while fellow New Yorker Eric Buckman is second in chips with nearly $35 million.
But they're all chasing Darvin Moon. The logger from Maryland currently sits atop the leaderboard, holding 30% of the chips in play. Only one of the November 9 will walk away a champion. Last year's champ Peter Eastgate is here, along with two-time winner Doyle Brunson, to kick things off.
Thank you. Good luck to all the players. Somebody here is going to make poker history today. So let's shuffle up and deal.
We're in a packed theater. Doyle just told us to shuffle up and deal. Phil Ivey is at the final table. This isn't the main event, Ron. This is a dream come true.
Well, it certainly must feel like a dream to the logger from Maryland, Darvin Moon, who's been waiting to get all his chips back into action.
I want everybody to know that I had more chips than Darvin playing Hold'em today.
Now, Kevin Schaffel must be dreaming.
We were playing at 7:30 this morning.
7:30?
Oh, I was up at 5.
5? I don't get up before the view.
At one point, I had more chips than he did.
I could barely get out of bed.
But then he made a straight flush and pocket aces back-to-back, and he retook the lead from me.
Norman, I guess Darvin is still running good, and he certainly hopes that carries over to this championship table. Away we go. 6,494 began the main event. 9 remain. Tonight, $8.5 million will be awarded, along with the coveted gold bracelet. The blinds are $150,000 and $300,000 with a $40,000 chip ante.
I don't know if it's the presence of Phil Ivey or the implausibility of Darvin Moon, but what a buzz this final table has created.
Action folded over to Darvin Moon on the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Pocket Cam Ace Tray offsuit.
Darvin has no credit card, no email address, no poker resume, but all eyes on the chip leader.
He will limp in for $300,000. James Aiken had the short stack of the table. Will not play. To Phil Ivey, one of the short stacks with Jack 10 offsuit.
And the small blind says he's just going to take it one hand at a time. Suddenly he's an NFL coach.
Phil makes the call to Kevin Schaffel in the big blind with pocket 9s.
Schaffel, the oldest player here, just turned 52. With 2 limpers in front of you, you usually raise with the 9s. However, the 2 limpers are the chip leader and Phil Ivey.
Schaffel was 1 card from a day 1 bust out. River to full house, and here he is, a member of the November 9. A raise to $1.2 million. Back to Darvin Moon now.
Before the final table, we saw Darvin play mostly premium hands. He's told some people he was going to sit tight here early. He's told others he's going to change it up. Let's see which Darvin shows up today.
Raise.
Well, Norman, here comes the Darvin changeup, making a raise with a pretty weak hand. Darvin makes it $3.3 million. Darvin's wife, Wendy, on the right, along with Darvin's mom and sister.
Phil Ivey would have to put 1/3 of his remaining chips in.
Phil lays down his Jack 10 now to the pocket 9s of Kevin Schaffel. Kevin brought about 100 people with him, the cheering section headed by his brother Jordan.
To call Moon's raise, Schaffel would need about 1/3 of his remaining chip stack.
An early big decision for Kevin Schaffel. And he will lay that hand down to Darvin Moon.
So Darvin is not going to sit on his big stack. He's going to be a bully with the big stack.
Darvin was the definitive underdog in that hand, but forces out all comers, including Phil Ivey. So a new moon has come to Las Vegas this November. Darvin with almost $61 million. Let's take a look at the FullTiltPoker.net final table ticker for the seat assignments. Darvin Moon in seat 1. Phil Ivey in seat 3. Happy to have the big stack on his right. Schaffel and Begleiter, who became friends here at the main event, are seated next to each other. Jeff Shulman is in seat 9, right next to the dealer, and Jeff looks down at pocket 5s.
Shulman joins Mike Matusow and Dan Harrington as the only players to make the main event final table twice this decade.
And with those pocket 5s, Shulman with a raise to $1.25 million. There's Phil Hellmuth, hired by Jeff to help him win the main event bracelet.
Boy, I hope Jeff doesn't become Poker Brat 2 at the table.
Next in line, Darvin Moon, Jack 6 offsuit. He will lay it down. Aikenhead gives it up now to Phil Ivey. Started this table with 5% of the chips only. Pocket kings for Ivey.
Ivey prepared for this final table by going to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Every day he lifted weights, did cardio, yoga, and played some golf.
Ivey taking it one hand at a time, and here's one hand that he can really take advantage of.
I'm all in.
Ivey is all in for almost $8.7 million. And up come the hump Jeffries, who made the trip here to Las Vegas for the championship table.
Boy, they haven't stood up that quick since the Carter administration.
Still action behind Phil.
Well, with Shulman, maybe the tightest player here, raising from early position, the rest of the table knows Phil Ivey would not go all in without a monster hand.
And the big blind pocket tens for Joe Cata.
How much is it?
Cata and Ivey have battled before. This is a bad spot for pocket tens. It would be for most of Joe Cata's chips.
21-year-old from Shelby Township, Michigan, trying to become the youngest main event champ ever.
Cata conflicted. He'd love to get rid of Ivey, but he'd hate to be the Schmiegel who doubles him up.
Yeah, it's so close.
And he mucks the tens.
And now I can't imagine the pocket fives calling here. You need a crowbar to pry chips away from Jeff Shulman at this main event.
What would Coach Helmuth do in this situation? Shulman does lay it down, and Phil Ivey will take that pot. Ivey up to $10.7 million.
There's very close hands there. There's only a few that I can have tough decisions with. And you probably know those few. Maybe I do.
Joe wondering how good a read Phil had on him.
You had to guess. What you had?
I guess you had jacks.
Pretty good guess.
So Phil Ivey gets a little stronger, and the message is clear. No one else at this final table wants to see this man with more chips.
Is he bluffing? I think he's trying to bluff me here. I bet that ace hit. What is he thinking? What is he trying? When the ace came off on 4th Street, he played with his chips. 13 to 12 to 1, 16 to 4 to 1, 8 to 2. Makes my 2 pair good. Unless I'm drawing dead. I like my chances. I'm all in. We play at FullTiltPoker.com.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio. Right now, let's take a look at our chip count brought to you by PokerStars.net. Darvin Moon remains in first place with a little over 60 million and 31% of the chips in play. 6 players are under the chip average of 21.6 million, including Phil Ivey, who got a little richer, which got the attention of everyone at the table.
You had me thinking for a while now, Phil, what I'm doing wrong when there you're watching.
Darvin wary of danger nearby.
I don't have enough chips for you to worry about me. Don't worry about me. I don't have enough.
Ivey's got that fox in the hen house look.
You said you don't have enough chips yet for me to worry about. No, it won't take you long.
I don't really predict the future too good. No.
I don't predict it either, but I know if I get a few chips,
it's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Everyone at the table is rightly fearful of Ivey, but they should take solace in the fact that even though Phil may be the best player at the table, he still makes mistakes just like the rest of us.
Smith and Ivey. Ivey with pocket eights and a flush draw. River card, ace of spades. Ivey with a check mark, hitting his flush.
I was watching it on my TiVo, and when I watched it, I just couldn't believe it.
Smith shows his aces up. Ivey mucks his flush.
Just mucked his hand?
I was just stunned. I just couldn't believe it. So I rewinded it like 20 times.
Phil, you had a flush. 5 suited cards is a flush.
I was like, I think they might have made a mistake.
Phil Ivey mucked the winner.
But apparently, I guess you did. So it's really funny because I never look back at my hand once. I kind of just take for granted I know what I have because I play so many poker hands. I didn't look back at my hand. I didn't see 4 spades on the board. So that's that.
Phil, you misread your hand. You misread your hand. How could you misread your hand?
I know I was going to get 100 phone calls about my friends making fun of me. So I'm betting on you. You don't even know what hands you have.
I am barring Phil from the big game for 30 days.
Of course, if any one of my poker buddies did that, I would be all over them.
The rest of us sometimes misread our hands. Phil Ivey is not allowed to.
Actually, I'm glad it happened because if I didn't throw away that hand, I might not be here. Everything would be different. So I learned from it. I'm glad it happened. But I look back at my hand now a couple times, especially before I throw my hand in.
I now believe Phil did that on purpose. It's all part of his master plan to psych everyone out, win the main event, and conquer the world.
And if Phil can conquer this main event, he'll add $8.5 million to his coffers. Here you see the payouts. A combined $27.2 million will be won by the 9 remaining players. Action on the short stack. James Aikenhead, who along with Antoine Saoud made the main event final table at the World Series of Poker Europe during the layoff. He's got king-queen offsuit.
And that equaled Ivan Demitov's feat from last year.
And Aikenhead moves all in for his last 4 million chips. And his rooting section on their feet. Phil Ivey, Jack 9 into the muck. Now 2 big stacks. Steve Begleiter, the 3rd biggest at the table with pocket 10s.
Begleiter's 3 children, already poker savvy and his harshest critics. His 11-year-old son Aaron told him he wouldn't make it past day 1.
Steve said that was a big motivator for him.
I call.
He makes the call. So James Aikenhead is at risk. And his cheering section on pins and needles. 2008 November 9er Elon Schwartz has been advising Begleiter recently. Steve's dad and wife are here also. So now the 2nd biggest stack, Eric Buckman. Looks down at Ace-King.
Buckman didn't get a coach and decided to play less poker during the break. He said, practicing against strangers is not going to help me against these folks.
Eric Buckman puts out a re-raise to $12.1 million, turning up the heat on Begleiter.
And with Buckman's re-raise, Aikenhead has to know he's in big trouble. If British poker fans are anything like soccer fans, I wouldn't want to be the guy to knock out Aikenhead.
Buckman's brother and parents watching this drama unfold. Action back to Begleiter now.
$8 million, how much?
Begleiter with the best hand. But is he willing to risk a chunk of his chips with pocket 10s?
He is not. He lays it down. So Aikenhead against Buckman, King-Queen against Ace-King.
Buckman has Aikenhead dominated. Aikenhead is all in.
Begleiter sees now he had the best of it pre-flop.
I need a queen. King-Queen, King-Queen.
Aikenhead finished 9th at the World Series Europe, trying to avoid that fate here.
The English always love the queen.
Aikenhead at risk, a 3-1 dog to Eric Buckman. Now the flop with our first November 9er at risk. It is deuce, trade, jack. Nothing in there for Aikenhead.
Good news for Eric Buckman. He's in a much more dominant position. Aikenhead now will need runner for a straight or that queen to stick around.
Turn card is a king that pairs both, and Aikenhead down to perhaps his last card.
That king makes no difference to Aikenhead. He still needs a queen.
Card here. No queen.
Buckman's family hoping for anything but a queen. Aikenhead came here as the short stack. He and his mates hoping he can survive and triple up.
Aikenhead needs a queen or he is whamboozled.
The river card. Oh, it's the queen! Aikenhead triples up.
And Eric Buckman has an Aikenhead.
The dismay is written all over Mama Buckman's face. What a card for James Aikenhead. Aikenhead now working with almost $13 million.
Buckman has told us people always suck out on him. He knows of what he speaks.
And James Aikenhead is the latest to do it to him. And that win keeps Aikenhead's $8.5 million dream alive at this championship table. These are the men who are guarding the money. Inside the vault behind them is $8.5 million. And these are the men who will transport it to the Penn and Teller Theater where the next world champion awaits. Now it's time for Straight from the Pros. Brought to you by PokerStars.net. On his way to becoming the 2003 main event champion, Chris Moneymaker first had to deal with 2-time champ Johnny Chan.
I didn't play many plots because he was re-raising me and he was abusing me. But I got into a position where I had a suited ace on the button with good chance to take down the blinds in position. So I raised the button and he flat calls.
And this is a good flop for Moneymaker.
A dream flop for me. He checked to me and I bet. And then he raises. I'm all in.
Chris Moneymaker laying down the challenge to Johnny Chan.
I'm like, wow, how did I get mixed up with Johnny Chan in this big of a pot? You know, I had no intention of doing this. I'm praying he folds.
All right. We got it.
I'm like, All right, I guess I got to get lucky.
I need a heart, dealer.
I thought I was dead in the hand. I thought he had a bigger ace than me.
Well, young man in bad shape.
And he flips up his hand like, oh, what just happened here? I realized at this point, I caught his hand in the cookie jar.
Chris Moneymaker takes down Johnny Chan.
It was a nice feeling getting Johnny Chan off my left and gave me confidence that if I can beat Johnny Chan, I can beat anybody. You know, no one else scares me.
Welcome back to the Rio. You see how the last 6 chip leaders heading into the final table fared, with the exception of Philip Hillman. 2007 being the chip leader means a high and lucrative finish in the main event.
Phil Ivey can be patient for the moment, but he's going to need cards soon to chip up.
Owning just 5% of the chips on the table, Ivey hoping to take a page from Jerry Yang's playbook, who won the main event after starting with just 6% of the chips in play. Antoine Saoud looks down at Jack Deuce offsuit.
Like Darvin Moon, the main event was Antoine's first time in Las Vegas.
He's going to raise it up to 850,000 chips.
Looks like the Frenchman is going to try what we call le bluff.
Schulman lays it down. Over to seat 1 and Darvin Moon in the small blind. Ace 4 offsuit.
Darvin unsponsored, unfettered, unaffected, unspoiled, and the only one in short sleeves.
He makes the call for 700,000. The big blind Aikenhead gets out of the way, so Saout and Moon will see a flop. The flop is King Jack Deuce Saout, but Jack's up, giving him a huge advantage.
Well, that hand went from le bluff to le nuts.
We saw Darvin play bully with ace tray earlier. Now it looks like he might be getting frisky with ace 4. He's going to bet $2.3 million.
Again, this is a new Darvin Moon. New, but maybe not improved.
Saout with 2 pair and a raise to $6.75 million.
And that should shut it down for Darvin Moon, who tried to buy this pot on the flop.
Darvin's family seems to understand the gravity of this moment.
All in.
All in from Darvin, enough to put Saoud at risk, and he calls immediately.
I doubled him up.
That's a hiccup from Darvin, but one hiccup can lead to a case of hiccups.
Saoud in terrific shape to double up and do it through the chip leader. Camp Moon not happy. Antoine's sister, Natalie, part of a large French contingent, many of whom filling the upper seats at the Penn and Teller Theater.
Not the 2 hands I expected.
Darvin's gone from premium hands to junk hands.
I messed up there big time.
You still got plenty.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I just figured if he's that strong, he'd have pushed all in over me.
Not sure if Phil is agreeing with Darvin or just trying to move the conversation along.
Correct.
Wendy Moon doesn't look all right at the moment. All right, Saoud trying to double up. Here's the turn card. Tray of diamonds. Moon with a wheel draw. That's Darvin for you.
The way Darvin usually runs, everyone in the reel must think a 5 is coming.
Wendy calling for a 5.
Antoine Saoud needs to avoid a 5 or he will be le wamboozled.
The river's another deuce. Saoud seals the win with a rivered full house to double up to almost $22 million.
And the logger from Western Maryland takes a small misstep.
Nobody ready to exit this final table just yet.
That's a good feeling.
We miss you.
Not a bad flop.
Darvin needs to clear his head and gather his thoughts after that hand, but that shouldn't be too hard for him, considering that's pretty much how he prepared for the final table.
Either you're going to get good cards and you're going to win, or you're not going to get good cards and they're going to win. I did not. Did I hire a coach? No. You can't hire somebody to teach you something that these guys have done their whole life. Instead, I went to Wyoming, me and 4 other guys, 35 miles up in the mountains away from everything. The phones don't work, no electric, no water. They all went hunting. Well, I took my gun out every day and went out in the woods, but I found me a nice, comfortable place and laid down and took a nap. You can't see anything to shoot if you have your eyes closed. So I just get everything else out of my mind and focus directly on cards. We played cards in the cabin every night. We just rag on each other, tell each other, you're terrible. Get up next morning and do it all over. It was good to get away, get your head clear, mentally prepared. I've played every hand I played in this WSOP back through my head.
I'm new at this game.
It still hasn't sunk in where I'm at. This is a fairy tale here.
I've been a run that's unreal.
Whatever happens, happens. I'd be happy living up in that little one-room cabin with no electric, no water, no nothing. It's just my lifestyle.
No electric and no water at that cabin in Wyoming, and the outhouse is 100 yards away. Boy, you've got to be really pot committed there.
Even after that misfire, Moon is still on top. Antoine vaults up to fourth place, Shulman in fifth, Ivy with a second short stack just ahead of Kevin Schaffel. Norman, this is your last shot of the season. It's time for the final table version of the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Wild Card Hand, where you and the folks at home try to figure out one player's hole cards.
Today, I will redeem myself for a lifetime of bad judgments.
All right, so it is folded over to Joe Catta. The 21-year-old has the wild card hand in the cutoff position. Catta with a raise to $1 million.
Well, in the cutoff, he could be stealing here, but his body language tells me he has a strong ace.
That's Joe's girlfriend, Elena. Shulman folds over to Darvin Moon, the chip leader, in the big blind. Darvin with ace-10 offsuit. When he watched himself on TV, Darvin said he was ashamed at how many tells he had and vowed to fix that weakness. He calls for $600,000.
Well, I'm watching Darvin on TV now and just calling with that semi-strong ace. Usually it's a good spot to raise, but he's going to play it Western Maryland style.
The flop is 4-8-9, a couple of clubs, so we know that misses Darvin with his ace high.
And I also think it missed the 21-year-old. I still have him on a big ace. So we're looking at a good old-fashioned Michigan versus Maryland ace-off.
Darvin Moon with the check.
And let's see if Catta is in the mood for a continuation bet.
Nope, just a continuation check if there were such a thing.
Well, he is still staring at the big stack, so he doesn't want to put any more chips at risk at the moment.
All right, turn card is an ace. Moon with the pair of aces.
And Joe Catta with the pair of aces. They've both hit their ace.
Darvin checks his top pair.
Darvin might be cagey there, hoping that Catta bets. But Catta has an ace.
Catta bets like he's got an ace, $1.4 million.
Darvin knows Catta could be making a semi-bluff here. It's possible he's on a flush or straight draw. I got to believe Darvin thinks his ace is best. He's got a pair of aces with a decent kicker.
Does Darvin want to come over the top, as we have seen him do numerous times? Nope, just a call.
He could be trying to induce a bluff from Joe Catta on the river if Joe's got nothing.
River card is another 4. Moon with the aces up, and according to you, Catta with aces up. So is it coming down to the kicker, Norman?
Yeah, Catta's got the better kicker. I think he's got a stronger ace than Darvin Moon.
Darvin putting some chips together. $5.5 million in the pot. Darvin bets $2.5 million.
Darvin likes his aces up, but I think Catta's got the better hand. He's got that Jake LaMotta look to him, and he's going to fight back with a big raise.
Darvin Moon trying to take a bite out of young Joe Catta's stack.
$5.5 million.
Catta comes back over the top, a raise to $5.5 million.
What did I tell you? I had this hand cased. Catta's got the better hand. Darvin probably knows at this point that his aces up aren't any good.
$3 million to Moon.
Darvin Moon ought to be careful right here.
Trying to get a read on Joe Catta. A call from Moon.
Disagrees with me.
Darvin Moon shows his aces up. Joe Catta, what do you got?
Oh, I don't like Joe's look there.
6 tray of clubs.
Well, I believe I got the first one of the year wrong, the last one of the year wrong, and most of them in between wrong. I'm consistent.
So Joe Catta bluffs off almost 8 million very critical chips and loses the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Wild Card hand.
Kid, you let me down there. And Darvin, again, is smarter than he likes to let on.
Go big dummy. Did you hear him? Yeah.
Is it go big dummy?
Yeah.
A strong read from Darvin Moon, and the big dummy is the big chip leader still here in the big one.
Hello, beautiful. Oh, yeah.
No one to play with. So play online at partypoker.com. It's fun, it's easy, it's the world's largest poker room.
You folding?
Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event. Final table.
Welcome back inside the Rio and the packed Penn and Teller Theater, where the crowd is on the edge of their seats. We get back to the action as Kevin Schaffle's aces are all in, but holding a commanding lead over James Aikenhead's kings with one card to come.
We got this, James. King of diamonds.
Bad luck for Aikenhead with his pocket kings running into pocket aces.
It's torturous. It's torturous.
Schaffle hoping for a harmless river to double up.
Aikenhead needs a king and a king only to knock out Kevin Schaffle.
River card is a jack. Kevin Schaffle will double up his aces over the kings. And the folks in the Schaffle Up and Deal t-shirts celebrate. While James Aikenhead and his crowd have fallen eerily silent, their hopes to see the first British-born main event champ diminish.
How great is this, Lon? The last time Kevin Schaffle had his name chanted, I believe, was at his bris. Now he has a theater full of people calling his name and nearly 15 million chips. That's the main event.
Well, Kevin feigns boredom there, but inside he must be excited. Right back in contention for that main event bracelet. As you see on the chip count, Schaffle is in 6th place. Ivy right behind him in 7th. Moon still leading everyone, while James Aikenhead has fallen on hard times and is once again the short staff.
At this championship table, 3 players are in their 20s, 3 in their 30s, 3 are over 40, so it's not just young guns here.
46-year-old Darvin Moon folds over to James Aikenhead, 20 years, his junior, with pocket trays.
Aikenhead, a member of the Hit Squad poker team. Before the final table, he prepared by going to Thailand with his buddies and relaxing on the beach.
With pocket trays, Aikenhead will move in for about 4.5 million chips.
And his buddies look like they could use some more beach time.
Action on Phil Ivy. Phil looks down at King 6 of hearts.
A man's got to get something going, but King 6 of hearts isn't going to do it.
So Kevin Schaffle now with pocket 9s.
Schaffle is a scratch golfer. He says he's going for the double. He wants to win the main event and the U.S. Senior Amateur.
I call.
Schaffle makes the call with his 9s. Aikenhead once again at risk. He survived once before. Beglighter gives up his button. Buckman's in the small blind. He folds. Kata in the big blind gives it up. So Aikenhead will try to survive his all-in against Kevin Schaffle.
Aikenhead second at a World Series final table last year when he got unlucky. Now hoping to get lucky for the second time tonight to keep his main event hopes alive.
Kevin's brother Jordan and the rest of the Schaffle Up and Deal group on their feet.
Come on, son.
Aikenhead looking for any support he can get. The flop is 10-7, and that's pretty much all blanks for Aikenhead.
Aikenhead now has to hope to make a backdoor flush or hit a 3.
James had premonitions about his main event success, but doesn't look like he's feeling it here. The turn card now is another deuce. Aikenhead thought he had it. Schaffle was squirming.
Schaffle and Aikenhead looking at each other, breaking up the tension. Aikenhead down to his last card. He needs a 3 or he's going home.
The river card is a 9, and with a full house, Kevin Schaffle makes James Aikenhead our first player eliminated from this championship table.
And a great double for Aikenhead. 9th in the World Series Europe main event and 9th in the main event here.
Kevin Schaffle being mobbed by his supporters. James Aikenhead being consoled by his 9th place worth almost $1.3 million. A valiant run at the 2009 main event has come to an end for James Aikenhead, and the November 9 is now down to 8. You saw the championship banners that were hanging inside the Rio Poker Room. One of our remaining 8 players will soon join that elite group. Maybe Kevin Schaffle, who woke up with aces. He's up against the pocket kings of Eric Buckman, who is contemplating a call of $10.5 million.
Buckman had re-raised Schaffle, and now Schaffle has 4 bet it. But I don't see how Eric Buckman can say bye-bye to pocket kings here.
I call.
He does make the call.
I call.
And Buckman hates to see the aces.
Aces, king.
The Schaffle crowd loves this matchup. The Buckman family not so happy.
Eric Buckman stands to lose half his stack here, and Kevin Schaffel is poised to move up to second on the leaderboard.
All right, here's the flop. Oh, and there's a king for Eric Buckman.
And Kevin Schaffel just went from the best of hands to the worst of luck.
Schaffel's ace is now looking for a lifeline. Buckman looking for the knockout.
I wouldn't celebrate yet. You got a 6-outer.
Schaffel can still make a straight with a 10, or he needs an ace. Otherwise, he will be gone.
Schaffel understands just how thin he's drawing. The turn card. Oh, king! And the quads for Buckman. Knockout Kevin Schaffel in 8th place. Kevin gets a hug from his friend on the way out. Schaffel's group is stunned in the upper reaches of the Penn and Teller Theater, and Jordan Schaffel can't believe his brother's aces were cracked.
Eric Buckman likes to complain that people suck out on him. Well, he can put that complaint to rest. He's running lucky.
Kevin Schaffel earns $1.3 million for his 8th place finish. Eric Buckman's stack balloons to almost $52 million.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But that's not how I wanted to go out.
Remarkably, Schaffel with 2 top 50 finishes at the main event in the last 6 years.
To the victor go the spoils, and Buckman now finds himself in 2nd place. Darvin Moon's once dominant chip lead is being threatened. Meanwhile, Phil Ivey's still near the bottom. Looking up, Joe Catta is the short stack. Back to action on chip leader Darvin Moon on the Jack Link's Beef Jerky Pocket Cam. He has King Queen offsuit.
Darvin from Oakland, Maryland, population 1,900, or fewer people than Darvin played against here on day 1.
A raise to 1.3, Ivey folds.
Ivey leans back, apparently a little frustrated with the cards he's been getting.
Steve Begleiter with ace queen of spades.
Begleiter's wearing the same shirt, same pants, same hat as he did earlier in the main event. He says respect the streak.
Before this final table, he says he never played a hand against Darvin Moon, but he's going to raise the chip leader to $3.9 million. Begleiter says he's a big Darvin Moon fan and that Darvin is a better player than Darvin advertises. Folded over to Jeff Shulman. Shulman will lay it down. So the re-raise back to Darvin Moon. And he makes the call for $2.6 million more.
So finally, Wall Street against the Woodsman.
All right, the flop now. Trey 4 deuce Begleiter with flush and straight draws.
And the flop completely misses Darvin Moon.
And Moon will check. Begleiter reaching for chips right away. And he will bet $5.35 million.
That's a big bet, particularly in this economy.
Steve's wife, Karen, sees her husband getting into a big hand.
Well, Darvin completely missed the flop, but it looks like he might have missed the memo that he's supposed to fold.
I think you're right, Norman. He's eyeing his chips. And now Darvin Moon with those big longer paws raises the action to $15 million.
Boy, Darvin Moon's gone hunting here without a rifle.
Karen Begleiter feeling the heat too as this pot builds to near $30 million.
You know, now might not be the best time for a Kodak moment. Steve Begleiter with a huge drawing hand here, facing Darvin Moon's big raise.
A critical moment for Begleiter with those draws, but still just with ace high, jousting with the man who's been running red hot at the main event.
I'm all in.
And Begleiter comes over the top, all in. Elon Schwartz hoping Steve is doing the right thing here.
Come on, Steven! Come on, Steven!
Wow.
Wow is Western Maryland for I'm in deep doo-doo.
Darvin Moon has dug himself a huge hole.
His big raise was his big mistake here.
It don't matter how much it is. Either I'm calling or I'm not. It don't matter. It's a whole damn.
Darvin's getting 7.5 to 1 on a call here. You think he has to call, but he's got nuclear swadouche, and probably the pot odds are against him. On the other hand, Darvin needs just 14% of his stack to call here, and he'd have a chance to knock off a player. Quite a pickle.
Darvin's really not a math guy. If he feels he's beat, he's beat. And he will lay this down. Steve Begleiter takes that pot. almost 45 million chips. And with Darvin Moon giving away 19 million, Eric Buckman is now the final table chip leader.
Queens.
You did?
Yeah, I played more than ace king suited of spade.
Yeah, Queens.
I had queens.
What do you?
Ron, I believe Darvin just bluffed his wife. I mean, you lie to your wife about playing cards. You don't lie to her about the cards you play.
I'm ahead of him, but he can draw out. I'm not giving him no 6.
That's what I told him. I said he plays those crappy ones and always ends up hitting them on the last.
Yeah, I know that's what it was.
While Darvin Moon continues to spin a yarn about his hand, Steve Begleiter can't believe his good fortune.
Playing poker, playing hockey, it's the same deal. It's about challenging your opponents, learning to make the right move at the right time. With over 10 million players, more tables, and more tournaments at every level than anyone else, learn for free at the world's largest poker site, PokerStars.com, and find the PokerStar in you.
The World Series of Poker, presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Main event, final table.
Welcome back to the Rio, where Steve Begleiter must still be feeling good about that big win against Darvin Moon. A hug from your wife is always solid reinforcement, yet it is the support from his children that matters most to Begleiter.
Family's the most important thing in my life. I mean, I got 3 children, Joshua, Carolyn, and Aaron. They're now 16, 15, and 11. They definitely don't think I'm cool just because I made it to the final table.
Prior to this, kind of thought he was maybe a little dweeby. He would always mumble to himself.
He's definitely interested in stuff that, like, we can't relate to.
Maybe not the coolest dad I know.
You know, when you have teenagers, they sort of look at their parents a little odd. I hope they look at me maybe a little less odd because I accomplished something that's sort of so far out there on the spectrum of normal.
It's great now. He's a celebrity. You know, everybody we come up to the street is like, hey, you know, you're Begleiter. Is that your dad on the TV? And
Definitely hasn't changed, like, our relationship with him, though. Like, he's still our dad.
The message I try to get to him is, you can do anything. I mean, I made the final table because I focused. I call. Don't ever give up, and you can accomplish whatever you want. Yes! Aim high.
I think he's changed. I mean, he could be a world champion. Like, there's not too many people in the world that can say, you know, they're the champion at what they do.
Hopefully this marginally nudged me up in their esteem, but they don't listen to me any more than they used to.
Let me give you some parenting advice, Steve. If you want your kids to think you're cool, wear a blazer, grow a mustache, and do poker commentary. Sort of works for me.
Jeff, you got 2 stacks of purple there, or 2 stacks? Is that a green behind the purple?
Greens.
Okay. Annie's.
Begleiter drawing attention to Schulman's dwindling chip stack.
Embarrassing me, Steve. Come on.
I'm still paying attention to Phil Ivey's chip stack. It needs to grow.
You have like 5 stacks of yellows behind there, Phil?
Don't worry about me. Worry about your coach over there.
Why don't you worry about him?
Schulman was convinced that hiring Hellmuth as his coach would add to his probability of winning, but Jeff's been pretty quiet so far.
Yeah, I keep waiting for him to act like a brat.
All right, back to action. Schulman looks down at pocket 9s.
Well, Schulman said his final table approach would be avoid making mistakes and don't open up until 4-handed, and indeed he's played very snug.
Raised to $1.5 million with his pocket 9s. Ivy now with king-queen offsuit in the big blind.
Barry Greenstein said he didn't think Phil would ever get this good, but credits him for spending a couple of years on the internet, improving his short-handed game and his hold'em game.
I'm all in.
All in from Phil Ivey. That's for about $8.5 million total.
Ivey with a precarious all-in. He might read Schulman's hand as weak, or he might figure Schulman doesn't want to play a big pot here.
The Humphreys are concerned. Mel with his fingers crossed for good luck. Bill Hellmuth hoping his charge makes the correct decision.
If Schulman calls here, Ivey will be an underdog for his main event life. Frankly, I'm getting a bit scared. This isn't the way I saw things playing out.
This would be for about half of Jeff Schulman's remaining chips.
If Schulman had raised from early position, I don't think Ivey makes this move, but he doesn't think Schulman's hand is as strong raising from the button.
And Schulman will lay it down to Phil Ivey's pressure. And a sigh of relief from Ivy's most loyal fans.
I guess Coach Helmuth's no Vince Lombardi. Shulman decides to wait for a better spot. Chips are power here, and my main man has been powerless at this final table. He gets a few more right there.
Any pot Ivy wins is scary for the rest of the table. You always hear how Phil is a closer. Take a look at these stats. When he makes a World Series final table, he wins the bracelet 35% of the time. And watch out if he gets heads up, because he's batting .700. All right, action on Steve Begleiter with pocket sevens.
There once was a moneymaker effect. Steve thinks his success might lead to a Begleiter effect. Everyone in Chappaqua, New York wants to get good at poker.
Raised to $1.25 million. The blinds are up to $250,000 and $500,000 with a $50,000 chip ante. Jeff Shulman lays it down. Darvin Moon will not play this hand. So in the big blind, Phil Ivey with ace-9 of diamonds.
Phil used to have a small journal he'd fill with strategy and player observations, but he lost that journal, so now he just has a mental notebook.
Ivey makes the call to go heads up with Steve Begleiter. The flop is all paint. Queen, Jack, King. Ivey with flush and straight draws is favored. Begleiter still with the best hand with his sevens.
Yeah, you see the percentages. Great for Ivey, but he will check right here and respect Begleiter's pre-flop under the gun raise.
On playing Phil Ivey, Begleiter said, okay, Phil knows what he has. Phil knows what I have. I only know what I have. This is not a good situation for me. Begleiter bets $1.75 million.
I'd love Phil to check raise here, but that's risky business with his chip stack.
No check raise from Phil, just a call, and he'll pay to try to hit his draws. All right, the turn card now. It's a jack.
Well, now a king or a queen would also give Ivey two pair with a better kicker, but Begleiter's jacks and sevens continue to lead.
Ivey checks again.
Ivey hasn't made a hand yet, trying to keep the pot small.
Begleiter will give Ivey a free river card. Phil trying to find some way to win this pot. River card is a tray of hearts. Ivey misses all his draws. Begleiter gets the check mark.
Phil Ivey cannot win this pot unless he bets at it.
Mel Humphreys with the fingers crossed.
Of course, Phil here can just check, concede the pot, and play for another one.
$6.6 million in the pot, and Ivey's going to bet at it $2.5 million.
A bluff disguised as a value bet by Phil Ivey. Let's see if the amateur can sniff it out.
Phil told us much of his success comes because he has a good feel for what people are thinking. Begleiter sees a lot of overcards out there, and Phil Ivey betting into him, and Begleiter lays down the best hand.
I'm starting to get that loving Phil Ivey feeling back, Lon.
The crowd loves to see Ivey take in that pot. And Begleiter can't stand to watch Ivey stacking his winnings and wonders if he was had.
And remember, no established pro has won this main event since 2001. Carlos Mortensen. It looks like my man Phil could be making his move.
Climbing the ladder pretty good, Phil. You're starting to climb that ladder. Only problem is it's a long ladder. It's a long ladder.
It may be a long ladder, sure, but if you're Phil Ivey, no climb is too high. Right now, these briefcases are light as a feather. But once the vault has been opened and the cage unlocked, they'll be loaded with $8.5 million. Benjamin by Beautiful Benjamin.